let me repeat thanks to our sponsors and, of course, to all the participants who stay for the whole day. And, of course, a lot of people online as well. I think with your support, we will not be making this as a big success we had today. Now, let me pick a few topics which have been discussed throughout the day. I think 5 or 6, which I try to react with some comments on what Hong Kong can do going forward, including taxonomy, sustainability disclosure, carbon markets, green tech, nature financing, and capacity building. On taxonomy, I think there are 2 issues. One is after the Hong Kong Monetary Authority put out the taxonomy, how do we use it? We haven't really explored the specific usage yet, but I do think there are at least 3 areas we should look into the potential. One is label your products, right? Of course, we've been using different taxonomy to label green bonds, green loans, green ETFs, and so on. But can we use the Hong Kong taxonomy to do something? That's one question. And this probably doesn't require the MA to do anything. It's much more voluntary usage. And I would encourage our members of the GFA to begin think about that so that we can enhance the profile of Hong Kong taxonomy and also its ability to improve interoperability across the different regions. The second usage is more for the MA, which is about mandatory usage of taxonomy for reporting purposes. This was done in China back 10 years ago by the banking regulator. I don't think it incurred much cost. In fact, if you ask the bank may be a little bit reluctant to put in some IT system and hire a couple of people and begin to do label and may end up with a little bit of greenwashing if we don't know how to use that in the early stage. But the transition in China, I think, has proven to be pretty smooth. We can start with a little bit of tolerance of inaccuracy, but over time, I think 6 months or later, when system is in place, the professional in place, I think we'll do a beautiful reporting of Hong Kong's green assets based on taxonomy. And maybe at the same time, the bank can use a couple of taxonomies, right? The European taxonomy, Chinese taxonomy, the CGT, and Hong Kong taxonomy with one system and pushing 4 buttons. And the system will generate 4 reports of how much green loans you have on the balance sheet of the banking system, and of course other type of financial institutions as well. Now the usage of that is actually for the third option, that's allocating incentive. Incentive could be monetary. For example, in the Chinese case, the central bank and local governments will look at the bank's balance sheet. Whoever gets a higher percentage of green loans, I'm going to give you financial award, for example, interest subsidies and so on. But it could be a reputational award. For example, I rank all the 100 Hong Kong registered banks in terms of percentage of green loans based on Hong Kong taxonomy. Then the ranking itself becomes incentive. Whoever is doing well is recognized by the market, by the clients, and by the NGOs, by the rating companies, and so on. And it will incentivize some internal allocation of resources towards the green activities. So these are the usage I think we have to think about and begin, our test, our trial program, and telling the regulator that this is not that difficult, and please impose a mandatory requirement for me to use that. That's my first point. The second one is on transition taxonomy, which we talked about quite a bit today, including during the lunchtime when Chris Hui was around. And there are a lot of companies, I think, the potential users of transition taxonomy saying that we need to have a clear idea what are the qualified pathways. For example, for mainland Chinese issuers, steel, cement, how do we really tell these are credible transition actions in the carbon-intensive manufacturing sector? In Hong Kong, we should tell what kind of a building sector decarbonization, what kind of aviation decarbonization, what kind of shipping, ports decarbonization are the credible ones. And if the authority can tell us with all these pathways and methodology for assessing the credibility, ambition of the transition plan, that's going to be much more helpful, right? And I think we need something like that. And there's some concern about, we don't have a capacity in Hong Kong to do the technical pathway, and let's wait until other guys have done it and we copy them. I think it's going to take a long time. And nobody's going to tell you our taxonomy is mature. And everybody's taxonomy is work in progress. and there will be so many versions of a trial, sort of a test usage, but I don't think in 3 years' time anybody will claim that I have a final version of transition taxonomy. It doesn't exist, in the near future. Then I guess the solution here is that let's start our work using whatever is existing in China, in Europe, in Malaysia, in Singapore, and also consulting our experts of the sectors that we are actually operating with, right? For example, the real estate, the aviation, shipping, and so on, and begin to do our version of transition taxonomy instead of waiting for another couple of years. Now, the second issue on disclosure, I think Kenneth has a very good point of helping disclosure with banks by putting out the tools, calculators, templates, and so on. I think that's something we should fully encourage and begin use these tools. And also in our training program, we can be the one who actually connect between these tools offered by the authority with our members. And of course, we need to have a little bit more clarity on the regulation. I think there are a lot of questions today for the Hong Kong ICPA, right? On exactly what is the relationship between this ICPA version vis-a-vis the exchange version, vis-a-vis the MA version, vis-a-vis many other versions of ISSP. So some sort of a more clarity, I think, will be needed to really set a schedule for implementation and giving the expectation that in X number of years, it's going to be mandatory for you guys, and you need to be building your capacity according to the schedule. Carbon markets. Now, let me elaborate a little bit more on what I said actually earlier today. This is about connectivity of voluntary carbon markets in Asia. I told to our audience in the lunch, but I think many others might be interested. What we did was actually back a month ago, GFA hosted a discussion bringing the Asian operators of voluntary carbon market, including from Indonesia, from Malaysia, from Singapore, mainland China, Hong Kong, Vietnam, India, and so on. And we try to tackle the common problems, which is lack of liquidity, lack of sort of perceived, at least, credibility, and the lack of certainty on policies regarding cross-border transactions, especially on cross-border transactions. We have seen some countries, authorities coming out and say we're going to stop cross-border transaction because if I sell my carbon credit to other countries, it will be regarded by the Article 6 of Paris Agreement that's going to adding back to my obligation for NDC, for the authority. That's why I don't want to see this becoming a problem for the authority, so I need to stop the cross-border trade. Now, that kind of potential policy deterrence is very problematic for the market, because anyone who has bought a carbon credit from another country will fear that I may have done something illegal. And I may be chased by the government, for me to pay back whatever I earned, or maybe, paying tax going forward. And we need to remove that uncertainty by helping the government to clarify their policies. And I think one way to do that is to look at the Singaporean example. In Singapore, they have done the carbon tax, which allow carbon credit to offset the carbon tax. And then they said, any transaction, cross-border transaction that involves offsetting of the domestic carbon tax will need to use this corresponding adjustment mechanism, which means that you have to report to the authority, let me know you have done the cross-border transactions, because I'm actually using public resources to subsidize you for the purchase of foreign carbon credit, because I've exempted your tax. Yeah, this is offsetting a tax obligation. But other than that, any private transactions without using tax offsetting is going to be allowed for free cross-border transaction. I think something like that needs to be in place in other markets so that the market participants were clear what's legal, what's illegal, and what should be reported to authority, what should not be reported to authority. So based on the discussion in our seminar, we came up with the idea of creating a working group on connectivity for voluntary carbon markets in Asia, which I think may materialize with the support of our MDB. And I'm hoping that they will be hosting the working group, which bringing these operators of voluntary carbon markets. And my proposal is that having China and Indonesia to co-lead, because they are the two largest voluntary carbon markets in Asia, and other market operators will participate. And this working group should be discussing a few things. One is enhancing capacity for policy, transparency, standards, getting closer to ICBCM and so on. And secondly, really improving the connectivity or cross-border flows between these markets, so that in the future, we might be able to see a carbon credit produced in Indonesia can be sold to the Chinese. And we in Hong Kong can be the facilitator. That's where I think Hong Kong can play a role. In addition, I think Hong Kong can continue to be the convener of this kind of regional dialogue, given that we have the expertise here, and we have probably more interest in being a regional convener than many other economies, which is more focused on domestic issues. So that's the carbon market. Next few points are relatively brief. For example, the green technology discussion, I do see a lot of vibrance in investing in green tech, in usage of green tech, but I think we need an ecosystem to connect the green tech owner, the users, the PEVC, and facilitating all these connectivity, right? And this platform or ecosystem, I think, need to be international instead of regional, confined with domestic resources. Hong Kong is too small to have all of these. And any single country, I think, would not be enough to fully utilize the domestic resource to create such an ecosystem, which really means that we need to have a platform that brings technology from mainland China, from Europe, from UK, from US, and to be utilized by everybody in the world, especially in developing countries which doesn't have good access to green technology at an affordable cost. So I think Hong Kong is in a unique position to create such a platform, maybe with assistance of a UN agency, which will lend us the credibility. And then we can sort of mobilize support of different countries with less consideration on geopolitics, but more of real sort of a commitment to resolving this climate issue through green technology. Nature investing, I hear a lot of good, interesting discussions here. It's more on TNFD, the risk analysis, risk disclosure, and so on. But I want to emphasize that in many developing countries, what they are interested in is finding money to invest in real projects. And I'll give you two cases which my team in Beijing has helped. One is they helped with developing a blue taxonomy, blue economy taxonomy in Yantai. Yantai is a coastal city in Shandong because the place has a lot of projects along the ocean. For example, offshore wind, sustainable farming, sustainable fishing, and all these ocean-related carbon projects, and many other things. So they want to classify these things to be qualified for cheaper financing from the banking system, which can be probably receive low-cost funding from a central bank and local government subsidies. So this kind of arrangement, I think, will be interesting for many of the Hong Kong investors because they offer the real opportunity to invest in nature projects. Can we, instead of talking here on nature, and go there and find the projects and invest, and maybe enhancing their return by carbon, right? Additional cash flow. And final point is on capacity building. I think it came up in every single session, and we need capacity building on usage of taxonomy, on disclosure, on transition planning, on technology, and so on and so forth. But I do think we, namely the Hong Kong GFA and associated platform, can play a major role in bringing these capacity to the users. As you know, GFA has been operating our training program with UST and SFI for 2+ years. And I think we will update our contents reflecting the new trends, right? A lot of new topics and new ideas and new resources and new tools we can incorporate into our training program, and making our training program more practicable, more usable to our users. So help us to shape our contents and also bringing more customers to the GFA training program. And the other platform is CASI, which I mentioned a couple of times, Capacity Building Alliance of Sustainable Investment, which I launched at the end of last year. Now it's a network of 60 global organizations, including Hong Kong GFA as a member. And we have done training in Hong Kong, in Doha, in Brazil, in Huzhou, and next month, CASI will be doing training program in Azerbaijan. So again, I encourage you to watch the progress of CASI and participate in our events, either as a lecturer or maybe as a contributor to our future e-learning programs, content development. If you have any contents you want to display through CASI, which will be addressing the need of 100,000 specialists in green finance globally, I think that's a platform you want to join. All right, let me thank everybody once again for staying for the whole days and supporting GFA. And I wish you have a good drink with us, right?
Yes,
and
that's right.
that's what
great. And
Jenny will be announcing. Thank you.